expecting things a couple minutes late, and I haven't heard anything about sunshine.
You selling tickets for the 20th?
Yeah.
Sure,
you-
but
you
at this point, you're still out right there.
go first.
Oh, okay.
Go, go.
I have to come and get a couple. I just wanted to make sure she's still.
Great.
Can we start now? Good evening. Welcome to the April 26, 2023 meeting of the Town of Hampton Conservation Board. In accordance with Town Board's adopted local law number 14 of 2022, the board's meetings are to be held both in person at Town Hall and via video conference Zoom webinar. The link to participate in this meeting via video conference can be found on the town's website at Town Council Agendas and Meetings portal. You can also watch the live stream video and submit comments for the public record through the town website. If you are attending via Zoom and wish to speak during this meeting, please click the raise hand icon. As a reminder to all applicants, agents, and members of the public who speak at the meeting, please state your name and have residence in the record. Thank you. Would you please join us as we salute the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What is your pleasure on the minutes of April 12th, 2023?
To accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearings, A 021027, Morris Feastness and Kathleen Crum Feastness.
The applicant is Anna Herman and consultants since 1319 North Sea Road, Southampton. At the last hearing, which I think was about 6 weeks ago, presented our application for a new house at 132 Cold Spring Point Road. Reminder, the house was approved by this board several years ago, and when we went to renew the permit, the wetlands line was reflagged, and we're here applying same house, same location, same size, however, the wetlands line has changed. And the other significant difference is the sanitary system that we're proposing today is an IA system that is shallow system. We no longer require retaining wall. And at the last hearing, the board suggested we should provide some floor plans and consider reducing the square footage of the proposed structure. So I've met with the property owners, and they've agreed to reduce the footprint of the house by 181 square feet, which puts us down from 1283 square footprint to 1102 square feet. That would be 29 feet by 38 feet. They've also agreed to reduce the entry deck on the east side of the house. This one over here. We did have much larger structure on that side. That was part of the previous approval. That's been reduced 9 feet of decking to 6 feet decking. So a 3% reduction. We've reduced the footprint, I said, by 181 square feet, or about 15% reduction in the footprint of the house. Since the and I'll let Marty speak to his sketch. Well, since the last hearing, Marty has provided us the sketch with his recommendations, which involve even smaller house and rotating the proposed westerly deck, which is oriented in the north-south position. On our proposal, he's rotated 90 degrees in order to achieve a slightly large buffer on that side of the property. Does work very well for the homeowners, however, because when you only have a narrow opening or connection between the deck and house, there's not very good access to get out on that deck. If it's not a large deck, there's no outdoor living space on this property. There's no yard. The entire property would be covered with native vegetation. It's already covenanted as part of the previous approval, the buffer and the fact there would be no non-native landscaping. The property would be all native landscaping. The only outdoor space they have is this deck that's 29 by 15. And if the only entrance to that deck is only 15 feet wide, you got to put your outdoor eating table and any chairs or anything that you're going to sit outside all in that space in a row. So every time you're walking to your table, you have to trip over chairs or whatever. It's a very convenient or safe, and they would much prefer to have the north-south orientation as we're here, so that that's going to happen every time. So that when you exit the kitchen or the living room, you have your table in one space and your chairs in another space, and you're not chirping over them as you go out this way to try to enjoy some other time. Family that really enjoys being outdoors. And as I said, it's the only place on the property that they're able to spend time outside and enjoy the beautiful environment and waterfront views here. Just to remind us, families owned the property for over 60 years. They've had the intention of building here for a long time, and for personal reasons got delayed and had to renew the permit. So at the last hearing, we said that we would work a compromise footprint and try to reduce house, and we've done some work on that. Marcin, the husband, is a architect, or trained as an architect, not certified. But he came up with a floor plan that can work. It's not optimal. The original footprint worked better. It allowed them to have an office on the main floor or den, so they could have a little separation between that and bedrooms. This reduces the bed count to 3. Whether it's 3 or 4, it's the same septic system, but the reduction in the square footage of the house makes it such that we really can only get 3 bedrooms. I think reduction in the entry deck is significant, and I think the reduction in the square footage, the footprint of the house, is significant as well.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Good evening, Marty Chief, environmental analyst for the town. As expressed at the prior hearing in this application, the applicant is seeking significant relief from the required minimum wetland construction and buffer setbacks. The required setbacks for a vacant property is 125 feet per building and 100 feet for naturally vegetated buffer. At present, and the applicant's plan calls for a setback for the construction of only 18 feet as compared to the required 125 feet. Acknowledging that this is a constrained lot, what Chapter 325 directs you to do when you review an application of this kind is to look at practical alternatives. Now, practical alternatives can include both increasing redesign of the development to increase wetland and building stacks. But as defined in the code, it also includes reducing the scale of the activity. My preliminary advisory report had made recommendations in terms of an alternative I thought would be beneficial to the applicant and to this board. to put that on paper. So before you is a drawing dated April 2025, 2023, which depicts an alternate plan for the site, which would increase, reduce coverage and increase building setbacks and buffers. I had recommended early on, and consistent with his drawing, that the outside, notwithstanding the prior approval, be reduced to approximately 968 square feet, which is very consistent with the maximum allowable residential coverage by this board on budding lot to the east. Which is very similar to this lot, except that in that location, house is even further away from the wetlands than in cases of this pretty. But I did try and look at that as possible model for development of this property in the interest of ensuring consistency when these types of applications come before the board. As indicated by my drawing, I also recommended that the deck be reoriented. I did not add that the westerly deck area reduced, but I asked that it be reoriented in a west-east direction. And you can see the significant benefits that are accrued by doing that. Where the closest sec of the deck in the house under the applicant's plan is about 18 feet. Under this plan, the house location remains the same, but the deck setback increases to the 32 feet at its closest point wetlands, and also allows for a significant expansion of the buffer in that along the westerly property line, the buffer is maximized at 40 feet. With regards to the deck access issues that the applicant spoke to me, it's my own deck is a lot smaller than the deck is proposed here, and we don't have any of those access issues. So the concerns of the applicant in that part are somewhat unclear, and there are also concerns that this board had Chapter 325 to direct this board to consider. This again is a very environmentally sensitive area. It's an area that's highly vulnerable to storm impacts and flooding, and one of the goals in increasing setbacks and buffers is also to better protect house in the case of a hurricane or a significant storm event. So consistent with the directives of Chapter 325, my sketch would further increases the coverage, and as I can come forward with a redesign that further increases building setbacks and allow a greater buffer. While the applicant has resorted to landscape the remainder of the property with native vegetation, which is most beneficial to native insects and songbirds. Buffers are most areas in natural vegetation offers some most functional in terms of wildlife habitat and filtration when they are parallel to the wetlands. So again, that's the reason why I recommended these design changes to increase the amount of buffer that's parallel to the wetlands on this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
I just want to add that the house layout that we have designed is ADA compliant. There is an expectation that one of the homeowners will likely be in a wheelchair at some point, and so they've designed everything according to that philosophy. And rotating the deck 90 degrees makes it more difficult, probably impossible, to have a table chairs out there and also keep it wheelchair accessible. Also, with respect to the square footage of the house, because we're in a flood zone, we need to have the mechanical room on the first floor. So we have a basement, we have no garage, we have no outdoor shed or any storage, so we need some storage area as well. And so there's a staircase and an elevator is proposed as part of that footprint as well. So the mechanical room, the elevator, and storage take up some of the first floor, which is why we feel that the footprint of 1,102 square feet is reasonable. The house to the east, the adjacent property to the east, the footprint of that house is 1,006. And they have some outdoor space as well. And a 6-foot high retaining wall around their sanitary system that have patio on top of it. We would have really no outdoor space on this property, which is why a functional deck, I think, is the practicable alternative here.
Suzanne, would you run by this problem with 15 by 29-foot deck?
Why it's a problem?
Yes.
It's not a problem if it's oriented south, like you have here. It's actually the upstairs footprint.
Is that deck elevated or what? Okay.
The house is in a flood zone, so the first elevation would be 10, which is about 5 feet above natural grade. So you need stairs to get up there. One thing that Ms. Cole also pointed out just today, which we need to consider, is we're going to need a walkway, probably an elevated walkway to connect to the boat basin and the dock. So we need to look at that as well. But yes, it's elevated.
Well, let's look at Marty's drawing, where he's suggesting it's 15 feet wide and 29 feet long.
So if you look at the first floor plan, I don't know if everybody got those.
Yes, we did.
So the kitchen and dining, indoor dining are on the,
Can you stand there at the board, please?
You're being watched.
like God is being. If you look at the western half of the house, you have the kitchen and the indoor dining space here. Access typically from house out to your outdoor deck would be that out of those sliders to that you would access off the side of the house. And typically you would use that space to have some lounge chairs and a picnic table, an outdoor dining table with chairs around it. If it's oriented this way, you can access the chairs, you can access the table fairly easily. If you turn it 90 degrees and Marty's sketch, every time you want to access either the table or chairs or the lounge chairs, you have to go past the other, which makes it more difficult. Chair legs sticking out in the way. It's a fairly narrow passageway once you put a table in that space to get by that. 50 feet is not that wide for that space plus walking access or wheelchair access past it.
When I look at that space, if I put a picnic table there, I would have built-in area for a bench on either the south or the north side, with a table that goes right there, and then corresponding chairs were on the other side, which leaves several feet in addition to get around side of the other. One of the problems we have with this application is that the setback from the wetland is a 14% what the code reckons. So we have to get creative. We have to figure out how to do things in a constrained area, which by its nature is mean we don't everything we want. If you need all those things, this is the wrong lot to do it on. And wetland line has already expanded into the property. Likely, it has not finished expanding into the property. So we're between a rock and a hard place, trying to figure out how to make something work, which is very difficult. So, getting a deck, I think, is a win. The details of the deck is just ice on the cake. In other words, I'm not sympathetic. Sorry.
Well, if you're going to build a deck, you would want to build a deck that works for the family that's going to use it. So,
Well, I would say the family has to work with the space that they're given.
What's the difference in the buffer between one orientation and the other? It says, what's the increase in buffers per side level view?
18 to 32.
18 to 32?
that's the setback difference.
Okay.
Although if you orient it north-south as we proposed, you would have more buffer on the side as opposed to on the south side of it.
Okay.
Instead of below, you would have more buffer on the side.
Okay.
And the decrease or increase in the square footage that we're talking about, house, did not impact wetland setback. It's basically the same setback where we're talking about 1,100 square feet or less than 1,000. We're talking about the same dimension here.
Susanna, would you know how high the pilings are?
How high the piling are? You mean above grade?
Yeah, how much is that going to raise now?
The proposed first floor elevation is 10, and I believe the grade is around 5. Let me double check. Obviously, it's not completely flat. It varies from 4.2, 3.2. Underneath the house is 3.3. So actually, it would be closer to 6 or 7 feet above grade.
Thank you. I have a question for Marty.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit in terms of what the setbacks that we're looking for if the house was on flat land as opposed to pilings? Do you see any difference?
Well, typically, today, when homes are elevated on piling, the landowners like to use that area below the house, below the base flood elevation for storage and other uses. So, today, while the elevation of the house on pilings, of course, is beneficial with regard to better protecting the house from flooding and storm damage. There's not a very significant difference in the degree of impact. It's a little bit different when you look at a light penetrable decked catwalk or something like that, because then there's an ability for natural vegetation to grow under that. There's no ability for natural vegetation to grow under a house that's only elevated about 7 feet above the ground. So there's not. The issue with a lot like this is really the coverage, and chapter 3 to 5 directs us by way of the definition of practicable alternatives to look at not only setbacks but the scale of the activity. The best way to do setbacks on a constrained property like that is to reduce the coverage, whether that be elevator on pilings or if it was rated at grade. I early on expressed that applicant might want to consider a modern house with a flat roof, and then a significant portion of the roof would be dedicated to deck space as well. But the applicant definitely has no interest in looking at that design option. With regards to the comments that were made about buffers, while the applicant was right that at its closest point, the deck, my drawing, would be 32 rather than 18 feet from wetlands. When you go to the western property line, the buffer further expands to about 50 feet. The app indicated that if you orient the deck in a north-south direction, there might be an ability to have a greater strip of buffer along that westerly lot line. But narrow strips of buffer are less beneficial than blocks of buffer that are parallel to the wetlands. I hope I answered your question. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, are you expecting to use the area underneath deck for storage? Would it be open? You said it's what, like 5 feet of grade, so.
Well, you got, the floor is gonna be about 7 feet above grade.
Seven.
Underneath, you've got your girders and supports that the piling's attached to. So the open space is not like a walkable space. You're gonna have like
No, but you're
5
not gonna use this underneath for storage.
I
It's
mean,
gonna
you
be
could-
open to, I mean, the ground is gonna be
Yeah, it'll
utilized?
be open, I mean, there may be lattice around the outside, but it's gonna be an open piling foundation.
Okay, so you're not using it for storage.
I mean, you could
Okay.
hide some kayaks under there, but I don't think it would be anything more than that.
No, I just wasn't just possibility of planting beach grass under it. It's not gonna be light reaching it enough. It's gonna be
I
beneficial.
don't think, we
Because if
may
you didn't
put,
find you weren't gonna use that for any kind of activity, and it was gonna be open to possibly planting even beach grass there if the light is gonna get to it,
I don't-
I
I
would
don't think
consider
you're
that
gonna-
something.
I don't know if you would get light underneath the
Okay.
house. Maybe underneath
I'm
the deck.
Trying to be
yeah.
creative as far as.
The-
I'm willing to plant beach grass under my deck, 100%. It would help the environment.
Yeah, that is something we've talked about planted, you know, underneath the deck or.
Just the fact that it's not going to be trampled on and whatnot would be something I'd consider. I just
Yeah.
wanted to find out what use was.
The underneath the house may be required for drainage. Talk to the engineer about possibility of putting the dry wells underneath the house,
Mhm.
just to,
But-
there's not, you can't put too close to a septic because of health department regulations. And everything else is fur or natural vegetation. So we don't have a lot of space for drainage. And I think at least some driveways may be under the house, which is a possibility.
Yeah, but since that was a hot button topic tonight, I just wanted to see
Yeah, yeah.
what we can do
Underneath the
to
deck.
rationalize versus the other. Okay.
Yeah, underneath the deck could planted
Okay.
with beach grass.
Okay.
Suzanne, can you talk about
Yeah, I'm not sure whether or not it's clear why the deck in this orientation is so much convenient for homeowners. From stay at the podium, I'm gonna get in trouble. From the dining room and kitchen area, if you would have 3 doors here. So you could go out this door to table, would take up about 15 with the table and chairs. You go out this door to get to chairs. So you're connecting the indoors to the outdoors more, which makes it much more accessible and easy use. And that way you're not having to pass by the table to get to theirs, or to get to your access to the water, which you're going to have to go that way as well, because the path and the ramp to the boat basin is on that side of the property as well. So not only is it a space for dining, outdoor sitting, if you want to put a couple lawn chairs, you also need to get out this direction in order to access the boat basin and the path.
Any other new addition or new questions, or we're just gonna
No.
indicate what's going on here?
I said, my thought on the deck, as for the house, there's no whole lot of difference between 968, which is what Marty's saying, and your
1,100, it's just over
11,
100 square
yeah.
feet.
1,102.
Yeah.
But I imagine the difference is required because of the setback from the property line, so that you can't, you have to make the house in order to get the deck over there. Look at this whole area and more than just this lot, because it's several applications in the general area, and they're all that I can remember are very, very house constrained. Look at chapter 325, section 9, 9D, and we go through these to see how we can make something work. And it's hard to figure all these things out because it's so short of the recommended setbacks, both in terms of burrs and in terms of building setbacks. So I think for you to get a house on here is a win-win for you.
Well, it is a single and separate building lot that the family's owned for 60
It
years.
is, yeah, I recognize that, and it's unfortunate it's taking this long to do this, and all these restrictions, and the law came in, and if they had made this 50 years ago, it wouldn't even be before a board.
Yeah, and if you look at the property next to the east, which got approval several years ago, now the wetlands have come up on that property, and even though it was a 40-foot setback back when it approved, the wetlands are just close to that house today as the wet would be to the house that we're proposing. So we're not creating a situation that's worse than what's next door. And they're very similar lot. We're proposing very similar sized.
It's because of those neighboring houses that the legal people say you gotta look at that and do something in concurrent with what's around you. I think either of these proposals will do that, except Marty's gives a little more buffer and a little more setback. And that's why, in my thinking, the scale is weighted towards Marty's going rather than yours. Unless you can come up with a compelling reason why we don't need, should have even less buffer. Even with Marty's sketch, it's way short of what the law recommends.
When you are leaning towards Marty's sketch, are you talking just the deck orientation, or are you talking about the 1,100 square feet versus the 960?
I'm talking about the page, because I don't,
Should you this big difference between the square footage, you
Yeah.
were looking more at the deck.
yeah, because I know that, I don't know that deck and Suzanne's house will fit here with the setbacks, zoning setbacks from the side.
Would the homeowner, after consultation yourself, consider reducing us by a foot as well as the deck by a foot?
We may have to talk about that and weigh the size. I think the house size of very important. If we go smaller than what we're proposing here, it becomes very difficult to build a ADA house that will fit the elevator and will fit the mechanical space, et cetera. And so there may be some give and take between the deck and the house, but I have to talk to them. We'd have to work on, work that out on paper. So
Would be my
not-
suggestion,
Yeah,
because we seem to be at a standstill here.
That's a very good suggestion. So we'll talk about that. We'll this over to the next available date, if that's possible.
I'm gonna see if there's anyone public who wants to speak. Is there anyone in the public like to speak in this application? And Kevin, anybody on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Tom, what do we have available?
Well, we're getting into a whole period of time, but if it's something quick, I don't want to hold up something that seems like it's only a one
I think we're
item.
honing in and
If there's a 1 or 2 item checklist, I don't see holding over until June. And some of the applications in May are double-digit postponements that I'm.
how much in a rush are you? Do you want to wait till June or try to get it sooner?
We'd rather have May. What is the date
Well-
in May?
We
May
have,
10th or 24th. 24th has 4. May 10th has 4. June 14th has 3, and June 28th has 1. Depends on how much time you think you need to get drawing and whatnot together, and how much of time you think you need to plead your case on that day.
I think 24th will work, and I think we'll have a great plan that everyone will be very happy with, except maybe Marty.
If it's quick, I have 3 new out of the 4, so, and the 1 has been discussed, so. Been a lot of postponements, but hasn't discussed.
Probably to get postponed.
Well, I know, that's why I said that some of them have been postponed a long time, but the 24th is probably not the best day for
this is
us.
quick.
But if it's gonna be quick, I don't wanna keep holding people over.
would you ready by 10th?
Husband will have to be in country.
Yeah, we need
Okay.
Barson to be in the
Okay.
country.
Okay.
Even if he's not here, he's very involved in the design
Okay.
process. He's, need to be involved.
If you think it can be a quick in and out with negotiating with the homeowner and
Mhm.
talking it over with our area
Mhm.
to get expeditious,
May 24th is the busiest we have.
well, then it's gotta be.
We do June 14th instead?
Okay, June 14th
Okay.
will work.
Okay.
We have 3, let's put any more on than this,
Okay.
and
Yeah, these two are together.
Okay.
And this is quick.
Motion to adjourn to June 14th?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. A021094 51 MPL LLC.
It's gonna be, landowner is up here by own. His name's
meeting-
Jason
meeting.
Rosenfeld.
Okay. So, Ken, I'm told landowner on this application is gonna be in Zoom. Is he there yet?
What's his name?
His name is Jason Rosenfeld.
Got him.
Yeah, he's on.
Hello, Jason.
Greetings.
Okay, you're on. Would you like to talk about your application?
I don't have anything to say. Marty wants me to say something.
We had discussion at the last meeting, and the architect was here, if the board recalls, and there were some issues we want to get answers to. Now, Marty, you do have a sketch, which is very different than that. Maybe you could introduce that sketch, and then that can prompt some questions.
Good evening, I'm Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. This is a continuation of a hearing for a very concerned lot that contains abuts town and state-regulated freshwater wetlands. The initial plan for this property called for retention of the existing home. construction of a second-story addition on the dwelling, construction of a northerly one or two-story addition, as well as building of a swimming pool, with the swimming pool to be in very close proximity to the wetlands. The application had generated significant concerns. And so, consistent with the directives of Chapter 325, I look to see whether or not an alternate plan could be put forward that maximize wetland building setback and buffers. I had a great opportunity to meet with the landowner. We had a very productive meeting. The meeting was beneficial as it gave me a much better understanding of the wants and needs of the applicant in terms of the expanded home. As a consequence of such meeting, and consistent in discussion, I prepared a drawing, a alternate plan for this site. That drawing is dated April 12, 2023. At the first hearing, there was some discussion as whether or not it might be preferable to demolish the existing home and construct a new home. But having met with Mr. Rosenfeld, we felt that the best approach was to retain the existing home and to go forward with the plans for the building of a second floor addition on that. Much of our discussion centered on other similar lots that have come before this board on Mill Pond Lane. And we looked at those designs to see how we could go forward with the home expansion, while at the same time to integrate a swimming pool in a manner generally consistent with what the board has approved on other similar neighboring lots. So the drawing that's before you, again, what it shows is the existing dwelling would be retained. A new complete second floor addition would be built. The former plan for a northerly residential addition has been abandoned. And then the plan integrates swimming pool and patio area in a manner pretty consistent with what this board has approved on area lots. Plan, of course, provides for an upgraded septic system for installation of an IAA. It maximizes parallel naturally vegetated buffers adjacent to the wetlands. And it also calls for native landscaping of some of the remaining disturbed areas, land of such covenanted buffers. The proposal integrates a pervious drive to allow real good rainwater infiltration and to lessen runoff. I provided the drawing to the applicant. We had a lot of emailed discussions back and forth. He had a lot of initial questions. And in the end, he has decided that this plan worked for him. And I've assured him that this land is not only consistent with what was allowed on similar lots, but meets the standard for wetland and permit elements, and that it maximizes buffers, maximizes setbacks, It upgrades the sanitary system and sets aside sufficient area in order to allow for on-site drainage, while providing the opportunity to landscape some of the remaining disturbance areas, such as the land atop the IA with native plants. So I think acknowledging the desire of the applicant in terms of future home renovations and expansion, and recognizing those exterior uses that are most important to the applicant, and also recognizing that the applicant has significantly reduced the scale of the initial proposal for expansion of the home. I think this plan works well for the site. The applicant has agreed to go forward with this plan. So that being said, I think I'm looking to close the hearing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason, you're in agreement with Marty's plan then?
Yes, thank you. I concur with Marty's description of our interaction. It's been terrific, and the very useful plan that he's, sort of the draft concept that he's put forward, and I think we can get sort of conditional approval, and then we can work together to make it, as it needs to be.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Is there anyone in the public like to speak in this application? Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom? Is there a motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, George.
A 02204, Michael Hausman. This is an application where we really didn't ask you guys to do anything.
Yes, you did.
Of course we did.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you did.
We did ask Art to do some things.
Yes. Would you like me to go for it?
Go ahead.
Not opening that.
You do to open that because this is in there.
Yeah, we have somebody.
Good evening, Daphne.
Good evening, Daphne on Surfside Environmental Planning. I'm here tonight with the Hausmans.
On the pool to do.
There is a submission in the file there dated April 17th with revised buffer plan, which is what the board asked for before we left the last
Yeah.
meeting. for
Remember
us
that now.
To revisit
Yeah.
our last buffer and do some further expansion. So we went back to the drawing board. And we did asked. We have come now within about 1,000 square feet of Marty's original buffer sketch. It's actually slightly less than that if you take into account the access path. So it would be about 750 square foot difference of planted area between Marty's sketch and our proposed buffer. We've done significant expansion on the Reeves Bay side of property, which is where the waterfront is. And we have done some minor expansion in the back of the property to I should probably have my notes, I'm just talking off the cuff. The proposed buffer takes up 29.3% of the upland portion of the property. And we've expanded it by over 1,700 feet from the last sketch. And I know when we left, Michael Hausman had said that he would look into expanding it by about 1,000 square feet. And the board had that would more than likely be acceptable. So he went above and beyond that. Arena, his wife, and they've come up with an additional 1,700 square feet of buffer. They diminished the area around the pool from 6 to 4 foot envelope, and they've left themselves an 8-foot passage in front of the house here. And then they've got their garden area and chicken area that we've discussed at the past few hearings. So I believe that this exceeds what the board was looking for at the last meeting as far as the buffer is concerned. And otherwise, we adjourned because Ms. Doyle had some paperwork to review from Mr. Walsh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mark.
Good evening, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst of the town. While I appreciate the applicant has come forward with an expanded buffer area, there is some concern regarding the size of the buffer between the chicken run area and the wetlands. Chicken yards produce a lot of nitrogen, so when you have significant nitrogen inputs into wetlands, that can result in a change in the ecology, the acidity, the pH, and that nitrogen can all enter the surface and groundwaters. So while I have preferred that the applicant focus more on extending the buffer in the chicken yard area, in response to the board's request, the applicant's plan does offer considerably more buffer than the prior plan. So I thank the applicant for that. I just want to take a final brief comment. I know there was a lot of discussion about the amount of fill that will be deposited on this site. One of the things that came out of the last hearing is that one of the reasons for the fill is to elevate an intended workshop, a studio area, beneath the base flood elevation, with the hopes that that area is utilized as a work studio. Risk of flooding, flood damage is reduced. My office had an opportunity to talk to the building division about the plans for the elevated work studio under the required finished first floor elevation, and the building division advised that while that might be allowed, the applicant needs to know that typically in these cases, that storage or work area can only have one light fixture and one outlet, and typically that would be mounted on the ceiling beneath the finished floor. So the plans that were put forward before this board that shows pretty expensive work studio areas. I'm not sure how functional they're going to be, considering the building division's restrictions on outlets, electric outlets, and lighting under the finished first floor, and floods. And so the applicant should be aware that in the event that these plans are approved and they go forward with that the design. The reason some lighting and at least one outlet is allowed low is because even if those areas are only being used for storage areas and not for living areas, in order to ensure safety in terms of access, you need some kind of lighting. But obviously, the requirement is just to make sure that, a situation where the electric wiring and utilities are flooded, resulting in issues with regards to the dwelling. So I just wanted to make sure that the applicant was aware of the restrictions on outlets and lighting in that intended elevated work studio area, because that may have an impact on his future plans for use of that area. The applicant had expressed that, that he would likely have a lot of tools in that area, and so I just wanted the applicant aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren.
Kelly Doyle, Assistant Town Attorney. At the last hearing, there were various issues that were raised with regard to the history of the applicant's property, how it evolved to the present size and configuration, covenants and restrictions, also conditions of a DEC order on consent. So I just want to address those jurisdictional and legal issues. The first issue was the merging of the two lots and whether that was an improper subdivision. I did find, according to ZBA records, the lots that were previously identified, tax map number 947-2-32 and 4.1, they were merged pursuant to a ZBA decision. The variance release granted to a prior owner in order to leave the existing, what's now existing, pull and pull deck. They were actually constructed across two lots. I believe they were owned by husband and wife. And they had intended to merge them, but they never did, and a CO was issued, and then the ZBA said, well, you have to merge those two lots. So that's what happened there. The ZBA didn't say anything about planning board approval in their decision. I don't know if that was required or not. In the event that planning board approval is required, I imagine that the planning board will approve the merging of the lots, because the ZBA required that quite some time ago. And another thing that the board could do, if you are inclined to grant the approval, you could condition your approval upon the applicant providing proof as to whether they need planned approval, they don't need planned approval, or the planning board waive approval. So you could make that condition if you want to. I don't see that particular issue as preventing the board from moving forward. And then the second issue has to do with a certificate of abandonment. I have a copy of that. On its face, the certificate of abandonment appears to be properly recorded. There's a recording page in the Suffolk County Clerk's Office. There's a received stamp from the Town Assessor's Office. There's certification and a surveyor's statement, a description. And the amendment was approved by the town's solicitor and the town's superintendent of highways. And this particular board does not have a jurisdiction to approve or disapprove or review certificates of abandonment. So you really have to rely on what appears to be a properly recorded certificate. And again, it was approved by town assessor and the highway superintendent, so you're kind of bound to rely on them. As to the private covenants, first I just want to make sure there's a distinction between private covenants and covenants that are recorded as condition of town approval, plan of ZBA or this board. If there's a covenant that's recorded as a condition of a town approval, then of course, the board or department that require that, they can interpret that covenant and the town can enforce it. If there's a private covenant, then generally the town, has no authority to enforce that. And the case law that I found in New York, the general rule is that it's something that you can do under a town ordinance and a private covenant. Those are different matters. because one is a legislative act, the other is a private agreement. And private covenants are generally, those are considered private rights. In order to enforce that would have to be enforced through private action between the parties that are allegedly asserting those rights and violating those rights. So essentially, the issue with permit for use that's allowed by a town ordinance usually can't be denied because it's in violation of a restrictive covenant. Another issue that we have is restrictive covenants can only be enforced when the intention is clear and they're not offensive to public policy. That's usually something that needs to be decided by a court. It's not the Constitution Board really can't determine whether something is offensive to public policy or whether it's reasonable. It's just not for this board to decide. And with being said, although the town cannot enforce private covenants, we do ask for applicants to provide copies of covenants to show easements and rights of way. If there is something that's very clear and we can see that there are clearly defined rights, then the Environment Division staff and this board usually try to work with the applicant to come up with something that's not going to interfere with others, because if something happens in the future, then they'd have to come back and amend their plans. So if there's something that's very clear, you try to work with that. So right here with these this application, the instrument, there's a 1952 instrument which it's been alleged that there's at least one of our neighbors have right of way over Fanning Road and Pearson Road. So there was a portion of Fanning and Pearson Road that was abandoned. And again, we talked about certificate of abandonment, so we're bound by that. But there are still some portions there are still portions of Pearson Road and Fanning Road, Pearson Road here. That's, this project will not impact those portions of the road. So there's that. And then right to use the beach, that was the second thing that was in that 1952 instrument. I believe that the beach that we're talking about is beach over here. This is a lot. This is 47 Pearson Road. That's not the subject of this application. So I don't think that this project would impact the right to use the beach on a separate lot over here. And if, the applicant should know that if anything does come up in the future, they would have to come back to the board, to modify plan. If it got to the point where there was a court order addressing any of this. The last issue was an order on consent. It was issued by the DEC. This board has no jurisdiction to enforce those conditions in that order, and the property owner will need DEC approval for this project. So when they go to DEC, if anything comes there and they have to modify the plans, then they would have to come back to the board for approval for any modifications. Same would be with the health department as well. So, there were definitely issues here that warranted review for sure. But this particular board jurisdiction is limited to 325. And I don't see anything in the town code or the law that would require stay of the decision at this point in time. And again, it is the applicant's responsibility to comply with the laws and regulations of other boards with other jurisdiction. And as I noted, if anything changes because of health department or DEC, then the applicant would have to come back for approval for the revised plans.
Thank you,
Any
Kelly.
questions?
Thank you, Kelly.
With regard to Marty's comments about the spaces underneath the house, this is a FEMA flood zone AE8, so it's my understanding that anything above elevation 10 would be 3 feet above the floor in these spaces would be FEMA compliant, so I'm not sure why outlets that would be, say, at level or lights be an issue. I don't know. That's for the building department, and then that's an issue that we can certainly discuss with them. That time comes. Otherwise, what are your thoughts on our plan?
I think you did a nice job. We
Yeah, me
asked
too.
12,000 feet, and you went above that. Thank you.
Question to the applicant. How many chickens and turkeys do you
You're
have,
speaking to a farmer.
do you have now? And do you plan on expanding that?
I need a microphone, sorry.
Hi, I'm Michael Osman, homeowner. Lost one, sadly, to a neighbor's dog. So we now have 9 chickens and 3 turkeys, and we're going to get 6 more. And I think it's going to be it.
6 more what?
Chickens.
Okay.
We're committed to 6 more chickens. Yeah. So,
Do you
It's not-
provide a roost for them to go on at night?
yes.
Are they hens?
Yeah, they're hens. Yeah.
Is
And
that,
then we
You usually take care of their droppings?
yes.
Okay.
is that roost under some kind of
Yes.
covering?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a coop. Arena.
It's a coop arena that Michael built. It's a duplex condo where they have separate quarters for the chickens and separate quarters for the turkeys, just so peace is restored sometimes. There's a downstairs area where they can roam and they're safe at night, or when they wake up, we let them out. And then there's an attached run, which is completely enclosed, which is where they were when we left, and then somebody came and let them up.
And so, to Marty's comment, I mean, I'm sensitive to that because we we love the water and we fish and everything, but all of that is being moved much further away from the wetlands than it is right now. So,
The reason I ask those questions is because chickens typically do fill up excrement, the area underneath the roost. At nighttime is when they seem to discharge much.
we
And-
collect that.
And
collect
being,
We collect
and
yeah,
we
being
leave it in the
under
gardens.
a roof means that it's not subject to rainwater washing that nothing away. If you collect it and dispose of it in some way, that helps to mitigate the potential negative impacts of high nitrogen.
There's a circle of life that happens where I collect the poop and I dry it and put it back into the gardens. So at no
Okay.
point is it touching the ground from the coop area.
And the gardens are raised beds.
And those few chickens, there's somewhat limit what they can produce anyway.
Yeah, I think that it's a reasonable number of chickens. It's not a poultry business. There are
Well,
pets.
that's a lot of chickens for a couple. Because they,
Neighbors really enjoy the eggs.
okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else that wants to come on?
I'd like to get this going.
Is there anyone in the public to speak on this application? Mike?
2 hours, please.
Let's wait, say something.
Hi, I'm Candace Huffin, 20%. I just want to speak about the chickens since we're on the topic, instead of coming back into the night about it. Yes, they're contained and they have a roost, and in this potential plan, they have a run that would be enclosed. I personally have questions, so hopefully this is a place I can ask questions. Currently, which is a part of our problem with this access to the beach that you speak of, currently the houses, which Mr. Welsh will speak about, are fencing off access to the public park space Suffolk County owns, which is the beach in question. They're fencing it off, and their chickens are free range into your public park space, which runs into water. All of the excrement that you're concerned about are happening on this lot as well, because they roam the entire neighborhood. So that lot subsequently is being ruined as well, or your wetlands are being compromised because we've been blocked off access to get to this park space. That now another extension of their property, and the chickens range over there. So I'm just wondering, this is a concern of the board, it is for myself, what is the plan that's been into place to contain them fully and get us access back to the beach park space that is public to the entire community? This is what I'm curious about. So this question I have, if that's something that you guys want to pursue further, I just need you to, like, you guys in that space. So it's conservation is very much a part of this conversation as well. Because he's blending the two spaces. They're just across, literally the chickens are crossing the road, and they're going, and use that as their.
Just that one where that is county owned?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a public, it has a sign that says it's a Suffolk County Park space. And then the other backside on Fannin is also county owned, but that's a preserve.
I think that's town there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, town and county there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's something also that if you're inquiring about their husbandry, then that needs to
Just
be
use your
addressed.
finger and point very specifically to that precise area that you're saying is blocked off and needs to be.
So it is, this is my house here. This is Pearson Road, the throughway. It's in your lots, I guess, over here, there's one small gate, two large gates that can open. It's being blocked for that.
It's being blocked on Pearson Road area of the.
Across, there's a fence that's going across Pearson Road.
Okay.
I remember one gate that.
A double gate, yeah, and they open it onto their space and let everyone free, except for the people, the humans.
The gate is on.
But the gate is.
Town property or is their property? It's town property.
Town. This is the road goes all along through, so technically if this was owned by anybody else, it would be a driveway into someone's home, but it's owned by the county. So this is a road, and this is their side, and then this other side. We blocked it here, opened the double gates, and use the whole thing.
Okay.
So something to think about when it comes to inquiring out the containment.
Well, if you wanted to get down to the beach from there, how would you do that?
Currently, the public park is available for going down to the beach.
And you can access that?
I have to lift a makeshift fence that the husbands have made, which I nearly broke my finger on the other day. I have to open and close it. It's on, I don't know, it's wire, and it's in metal stakes in the ground.
Is that on their property?
Starts on their property, crosses the road, and connects to the public gates.
So part of it is not on their place?
And it just blocks everything off, so it makes this piece of property obviously just doubling, like he's utilizing the space and taking something that's not his. It limits our access to it, almost makes it nearly impossible. I'm not gonna mess with somebody else's strange little fence in order to go see the sunset. I've already injured myself on it once. And the reason why I bring it up, because you did mention the fence, and if they block it off, open the double gates, and everyone roams free. So if a concern about their access to the water channels, then that's something to think about. I didn't plan on speaking, sorry, but I just wanted to not, I think we get so, when I come up at the end of the night, I've already forgotten all the topics that are happening in real time that I want to speak on, so I wanted to bring that up. I'll leave it to Mr. Welch now. Thank you.
Would you like to respond, Tom?
Sure.
Okay. So, there was a split rail fence on the border of the Suffolk County property, which is on the other side of Pearson Road from our house, but most of the fence is rotted and come down. There's a section with two big swinging gates, and there's also a small gate. There's a construction project across the street from us. They're building a two-story house. And I asked contractor, because the chickens were roaming over there, and I asked contractor to put a fence around property, and he didn't do it. So I ran a fence across the front of our property, on our property line. It's metal stakes with like plastic, it's like a plastic fence, you know, like, I don't know what you call it. Excuse me? Green mesh plastic, right? So I ran it across our property line, and then I angled it across the part of Pearson Road that we don't, and I put it right up to the double swinging gates because I get an extra 20 feet of protection from our chickens to go into the construction site. I did leave the small gate, which is for people to go in and out of the park. That is accessible from the road. I didn't block it. I'd be happy to move the whole fence onto our property. End of story. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tonight.
Okay,
Totally happy to move it.
thank you.
But I was just trying to, keep out of the construction.
Mike?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Michael G. Walsh, 16 Brook Highway 4. And this fine, she's next door neighbor to the applicant, and we were here twice before. What I'm hearing this evening is we have to go knock on some other doors, which we intend to do. Plant board, the zone administrator, the building inspector, and I guess the ZBA. I do have in the file, I think it was my last letter, very good graphic that outlines the area that was abandoned and which essentially blocks legal access to this beach parcel that was made part of the subdivision after the beachfront parcel. So if anyone to explore exactly where that is, it's in the record. Number one. Number two, I sat here tonight and I listened to two prior cases. The Cuomo case on Cold Spring Pond, and then the Mill Pond case with Rosenfeld, I think he was. And I heard Marty refer to the practical difficulties, the practical alternative test. Chairman referred to 325.99D. Term reduced the scope of the project, reduced the scope or size of the project. What was bandied about during the course of those prior applications. We put another letter in today. It's got an exhibit. If it's possible, we could put up on the screen. What we did was we went around the neighborhood and we measured the structural footprint of the improvements on all the lots in the neighborhood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lots. And we went to assessor's records, looked at plans that have been filed with you. What we determined was that the property before you proposing a structural cover footprint that is 300% larger than the average in neighborhood. If you look at this graphic, see 24 Pearson Road, which is before you. The existing structural coverage is about 700 square feet. The proposed is 6348. And you go around the block, 27 Pearson Road, it's a bungalow type house, 932 square feet. 21 is 2442 square feet. 15 Pearson is 695. 18 Pearson is 1,995. And my client's house, 20 Pearson, is 2,082 feet structural coverage. What I have not seen on this application, although I saw some 2 prior applications and many dozens of applications before this one, the house application, what I have not seen is a reduction of 1 square foot of structural coverage since its application was filed. Things have been moved around the board. Things have been, and I just heard a comment that that's true. And if it's not true, then maybe someone should mathematically prove it out by using the documents that are filed to show us that the housing residence is not approximately 300% larger in structural coverage. The entire property, including the pool and the deck, 300% larger than any of the properties in the neighborhood. What's not happened is the private alternatives requirement has been applied to this property. 329D has not been applied to this property. There's no suggestion that there should be a scaling down of the application. And I have dozens, not 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, dozens of examples where this board has imposed that requirement on every applicant that was before your board. number one. Number two, let's talk about these covenants and restrictions and what happens when these subdivision covenant and restrictions or a subdivision is now amended. Tomorrow, before the planning board, tomorrow, Thursday, there are two matters before the planning board where covenants are going to be discussed before the planning board, and whether or not those covenants should be amended. Typically, what the planning board does is they give notice to the people on the subdivision. Why do they do that? Because if you lose your access to a beach that's part of deed, where are we here? Here we are. If you're gonna lose access to the beachfront that's part of your deed, part of the subdivision scheme, you're gonna ban a road that eliminates legal access. I know your board does not have jurisdiction. I know that. I'm aware of that wetlands board. I'm just want the board to know for future cases, if you do that, and you're gonna abandon roads and you're taking away legal access to a beachfront parcel that the subdivision lot owners have a right to use and a right to access by abandoning the road and annexing it and make it part of your deeded lot. You've got the planning board, no doubt about it, and we're gonna make of it there. So I suspect we will be here. I suspect we'll be knocking on the doors of other agencies, other tribunals, whatever we have to do. But I think what we have here, we have a situation where in effect what's happened here by virtue of the owners of the property, not necessarily Mr. Houseman, certainly his predecessors, and then when he filed the abandonment certificate, because it was done by this applicant, created a situation where you permitted the creation of a lot that apparently permits your board to approve a structural footprint on a lot that's 300% larger than the average in the neighborhood. I can't believe for a minute that result that was envisioned by the drafters of 325. And I submit to you that there is more than enough precedent to convince you of that. You go back and you read those decisions. With that, that's all we have to say this evening. As I said, we'll be knocking on doors, going to agencies, and I suspect we'll be back here. Because we don't make these suggestions lightly. We don't put these things in the record just because we have nothing else to talk about. We think that these are substantial issues in this project. If someone wants to do the math and convince me that the property is not 1% larger than the average structural coverage in the hood, go right ahead. I don't think you're going to do it. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Anything new?
Just with regard to the road abandonment, it did go before the planning board. I do have a copy of an agenda from March 11th, 2021, which I can submit, but I don't see that it's rent to this board because this board is here, Chapter 325. We did reduce the scope of the project by taking the barn that was originally proposed. We reduced the size of the barn before the first hearing at the request of the neighbor prior to even coming before this board. And we further reduced it by attaching it to the house. What else? We have been working to provide maximum wetland buffer while still seeing the needs of the people who have lived here every single day. This lot is larger, as is evidenced by that map that was just up, than the other lots in this area, because it was a combination of one lot in the subdivision and two other lots that were really not a part of the subdivision, but were the lots. One lot that Mr. Walsh is referring to that had the beach, was to provide access for the other neighbors, is actually the other lot that's owned by Mr. Hausman and his brother. Is not a beach. It's right of wetlands. It's never a beach at this point. So the beach that Ms. Huffine is looking for access to was actually county property, which is a lot within subdivision that was not a lot, was to be granted access from CNRs.
Michael Hausman, I just want to make one quick point too. The road, so, my brother and I own this property here, and I own this property here, and, part of Pearson that it goes between those properties is all within the wetlands. It's all in the wetlands. And as far as access goes, I mean, anybody in our neighborhood is happy, like, they can walk our property if they want to swim, and I'm not restricting anybody's access, so.
Okay.
Just one last point, with the abandonments of the road, didn't really do anything but buying them actual road frontage because they had a pre-existing non-conformity for their existing house, and the proposed house is actually meeting that same setback. I think deck is slightly encroaching, so it's really not giving them any great change. I don't know. So that's all. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Is there anyone who would like to speak on this application? Is there anyone on Zoom, Kevin?
Just to know,
Yes. There is.
you did receive 2 letters, one email today, Lee Green, and did forward those to the board, just to know for the record.
So, okay.
Hello, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Sherlyn Sparks. I reside at 20 Pearson Road with Candace Southline, and I just wanted to formally introduce myself to you all. I've been quietly ending every hearing of our concerning 40 Pearson Road, and wanted to just let you know where I stand. I'm an interior designer, a really successful firm in So and Manhattan by the name of Pike & Co. We design large commercial and residential projects on both the north and south forks. I am very familiar with the building and permitting process within each town and have a special relationship. And I work alongside reputable builders and architects such as McCoy BMA Architecture for construction, SBS Builders, Fellow Architecture, and it goes on. I am in the business of designing dream homes, and while I understand that this is the goal for the Housemans, I learned in my career that not every property is able to stand all my desires. So just a few thoughts on my end, like the issues plan do vary, and I think as Mr. Walsh mentioned, we've watched a few of these, and there are a lot of practical things that are just being, I don't want to say overlooked, but there are allowances that I'm assuming that are going to be made. And so, just on our end, we really can continue to express great concern just for our property flooding. Our property is at the lowest grade of Pearson Road and Banning Road. It's where all of the other grades kind of come together. And by raising the grade, adding fill underneath the house, so close our house, their house is now going to set back 20 feet from ours to accommodate a bit of her and the continuous structure they would like to build. And just overall, after multiple meetings, it's clear that they're not leaving much room for plan alteration except for room in a barn and a few areas around the town pool. And just, if you haven't got a chance, Teresa Mayhar submitted a letter, and she's at 68 Fanning Road. She was actually out of town and able to make this meeting, but I would urge you to read her letter before making any decisions. She's lived in the neighborhood over 22 years, and she thoroughly explains what happened during Sandy and how it affected the neighborhood. And her mother actually owned the property that was sold to Ms. House. And we are sending our savings retaining Michael Walsh to our research into whether the Houseman's plans are client and legal. We're really concerned for our future if this plan isn't approved. Not just on a personal level, but just on a climatic level, sustainability, and frankly, we will outlive them. So it's something to be considered, and for a structure that's 300% larger than the small, beautiful neighborhood. After neighboring with them and seeing how structures that have been built on this lot and how compliance and necessary permissions have been overlooked, we're really worried that once they do get approval for this plan and they continue to build without compliance, and I understand that there are special inspections, things that occur throughout a project's lifespan, but once this project is completed, who's going to be stopping by and continue to check on compliance? And if our yards after heavy rain or Easter, hurricane, the amount of fill, structures, and septic location, which also that area floods quite a bit, who's responsible? Is it you guys for granting your approval of these permits? Is it this engineer who's trying to show to be a space where the water would go instead of a shore of the sand that's there to drain it properly? We're asking you to examine all factors for making this decision. It's not just about the house's future, it's also about the neighborhood and our future as well. And we have invested a great deal for our property and would appreciate careful review and consideration. Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak on this application? Okay, if there's no one else?
No one else will do.
Okay.
Make a close the public hearing.
Well, do we,
No, at all?
do we need to research any of those things that come up?
I think there's anything further that has to be researched at this point.
Okay.
Because that's the board's, well, I mean, that's the board.
Well,
Jurisdiction, I think, the only thing I would say,
It's up to you if you want to, if you are so inclined to issue an approval, just to maybe condition it upon the applicant submitting something as to whether subdivision approval was required from the planning board or waived or.
okay. The only other thing I can think of is the concern of floodwaters leaving their property, going to the property to the north. Perhaps you can speak to that, Daphne. Is it possible for water to be discharged from your client's property, the neighbor's property?
Can I just ask a question with regard to this particular conditioning this upon whether or not a subdivision was necessary? This board has issued permits on this property in the past. So I'm kind of confused why that would be necessary at this juncture. It seems kind of irrelevant to me. The town has issued multiple permits on this property over the years, so I don't understand why that would be necessary.
They have such a
good
drainage.
Been brought up before.
Hadn't been up before.
So that's, so Kelly is just saying, if you want to keep it clean, just have the planning board come back and say it's not necessary.
We
Have them issue it, and it be conditioned on that. We can still make a decision, but conditional on that. And so, because it has been brought up, I think we have to address it.
I mean, it could be as simple as a letter from the planning department staff saying, you don't need approval. I mean, whatever, just to make sure that you have some contact with, the planning department, just to make sure that, approval, whether it is or is not required.
I don't think it gets to be. I could wrong though,
I don't know. Okay. Otherwise, to address runoff from this property to the neighbor's property, I don't see how that's going to be a fact here, where we're proposing brand-new structures that will have adequate drainage to contain all impervious surfaces in between the structures, and the Huffine property will be large pervious gravel driveway that would catch any potential pervious stormwater that would come from the property otherwise. And beyond the driveway, the Hausmans are planning to plant some screening vegetation, which we're showing on the site plan here, that would further catch any other water coming from the property. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be any issue. The sanitary is going to be minimally raised because leaching components don't require a ton of fill in that area. We did relocate sanitary slightly further away from them, which did push it slightly closer to the wetlands to accommodate their concerns. So, you know, I mean, Mr. Walsh is talking about 9D. If we want to get really serious about that, there's a lot of things this board could ask us to do that would push this project much closer to the neighbor's property line. But we're not talking about that. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, Harry, bringing up static, that was the norm, and as you said, you've never seen, such high tides from that. It doesn't mean we're not going to have more storm because of the climate changing and the earth warming up. But during that storm, I think many of us saw water in places that we never imagined, we would.
right now, there are no buffers on this property. There is no natural vegetation beyond the wetland boundary. There's a significant amount of structure and hardscape between the wetland boundary and where we're proposing development right now that will be removed. And we replaced with native plantings. So this is what this board looks for in a project. Everything will be upgraded to today's standards, which will be FEMA compliant. I think we've met the condition chapter 325D with everything that we've done on this property.
Thank you, Dustin.
If the needs no more information, is
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Paperwork.
Oh, nitrogen. Yes, right there.
And the next application is the new one, A022093. Andrea Lusa and Maria Leonova.
Oh, yeah. This is a new public hearing. You have affidavits of being mailing, compliance with the town code. The board does have jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Good evening. Kevin Springer, Dynamic Legal, 61 Charing Cross, Hampton, New York, 11946. I have what I think is a nice application, nothing too substantial.
That's what we like.
I'm gonna try and keep it quick. So we'll start with the pool, which are at 78.5 feet from the wetland. Just so anybody's aware, part of that wetland is actually a dirt road that anywhere from 50 to 100 cars drive by every day, which is a little bit of an insinuating circumstance. I know that Marty has an issue with the 78, and he wanted us to put the pool over in this area. First problem with this is, that's not meeting our side yard setback, that's gonna require a variance. Then, if we move it over even more, now we're stuck right in here. In Marty's list on, I believe it was 15 Mill Pond, that was 70 feet. We have the pool itself is basically a lap, 12 by 30, 6.5 feet deep at the most. The buffer itself is almost 65% of the backyard in total. So I'm just, I know that it has, somebody else had submitted an application on this, I'm sure who that was. And there was some conversation about the sun and whatever, and we can pool this way to get sun. But that's not a problem. Problem is that we're not gonna meet our setback. This is an R40 zoning, and we would need to go to the zone for that, which is what we're trying to avoid in the first place, to add another 8 acres to this project. I don't know if Marty, he had mentioned something about this not being the same, or this was being the same. I'm really not, and you can speak to that. Again, it's not a really large pool, and we do, you know, at this point, we're probably gonna have to shift it over a little more anyway, which is not going to increase or decrease the setback, it's just gonna slide over a couple feet. But put it this way, clearly restrict the patio that we have, that we're proposing as to what, you know, what Marty wants to put there. I don't know really a whole lot. We're moving the shed, removing the shed, we're not moving it. And, let's see, I mean, everything was pretty informing that I can think of. And I don't know if you have any questions.
The size of the patio looked like a pretty big patio to me.
Yeah, you know, it's probably about, looks about 30. But if you put 12 by 30 pool in there, you know, I mean, could we cut it a little bit? Probably. But, you know, if you have to remember that here, because we don't want the patio going any closer to wetland, and we would like some room for some chill lounges, but then any barbecues and whatnot, and tables for outside would go behind here. I know it looks big, but once you put a pool in there, it's not as large as you would think it would be. It's not a whole lot of space to begin with. So there will be some stuff on this patio, because we now know we will have a shower.
I haven't seen, well, I should have seen the report, but I saw that the frame dwelling exists as it does right now, correct?
Say again?
The house is there, and
The house is there right now?
Yes, the house has been for,
Okay, and so is the concrete apron outside of the garage?
yes.
Okay.
You know, the drywall have not been moved, the pool equipment is being moved to, you know, which I think Marty is where he'd like it. And then again, I don't know if he wants this particular planting, but that can be whatever he would like, that's fine.
yeah, I don't have a sketch from staff in the file, so it's kind of for us to know what, visually, what staff has proposed. So-
There is such in the file.
This is your sketch?
Tom,
Oh,
look here.
okay.
See,
All
Marty
right.
wants to change the orientation.
All right, now I see.
See?
Just wasn't clear to me, excuse me.
Symmetrically, I mean, don't, what's to put a pool on the property line?
Select the pool to come in about 8 feet. If I'm
Well,
reading every
Well,
correctly.
you're asking me to go to the beam or speak from
Yes,
here? or
yeah,
no?
yeah.
I
But-
don't
Have you finished?
what we're doing here.
Have you finished?
Well, he's done, you can go up, I just wanted
Yeah,
to.
that's what I'm gonna do. All right, thank you. Good evening, I'm Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. This application is a return of a prior application that went from board, which sought approval for similar improvements, so that application had been withdrawn and is actually resubmitted again. There is a preliminary advisory report filed dated December 12, 2022. Previously, this applicant had come before the board. This board, in the interest of trying to be creative about possible ways to offset wetland impacts, had expressed desire to see an LOWTS installed on this property, and had expressed that if that was offered, that could be looked at as partial mitigation for less wetland construction setbacks that were being sought. Both the applicant and I had expressed concern regarding that discussion, as I didn't see that it would be appropriate to require an IA to be installed as mitigation for a pool, because if it's the IA and not well to impacts that are associated with construction. The consequence of installing that IA would also have been that the applicant would have had to cut and remove quite a number of large trees roadside of the dwelling, and neither the applicant nor I saw the environmental benefits of that. So, in communication with the applicant, I had agreed to work towards a alternate creative design plan for the site that could provide sufficient mitigant without having to revisit any requirement for a installation. The obviously a pool is an amenity. That being said, when an applicant expresses a significant desire to install a pool, I try and do what I can to work with the applicant, find a way to get a pool. And what 325 directs us to do is to evaluate practicable alternatives wherein when the applicant is seeking relief from the required minimum in construction setbacks and actual buffer setbacks. As it is a property, the minimum required wetland building setback, of course, 100 feet, minimum buffer is 75 feet. This property, this plan falls significantly shy of those parameters. What Chapter 325 directs us to do is to see whether or not a different design approach could be taken that could increase wetland setbacks and increase opportunity for expanding the buffer. Initially, there seemed to be some interest on part of the applicant to work with me in that direction, but when the applicant came forward with this plan, and I expressed to the applicant what I thought needed to be considered as an alternate plan. The applicant was not amenable to that. Mention was of other applications, and I take the same approach with other applications. Look at the entirety of the property and look at whether or not there's an opportunity to shift further land, whether or not there's an opportunity to reduce the footprint of the pool, and whether or not there's an opportunity to maximize setback. So the sketch I provided did was 2021. Shows a small pool, 10 by 20-foot pool, a grade of setback of 86 feet, with a shifted patio as well. While the pool is shown at 78.6 feet from the wetlands. The patio is 75 feet, so the patio is close. You know these wetlands, they're very, very significant. Yes, the property is separated by a very narrow, muddy private road that's often underwater, that separates this property from the vegetated wetlands. If you visit this waterway frequently, as I do, you'll see that there's an area of abundant wildlife. It's an area where you see heron, egrets, it's quiet areas, so you got waterfowl that reside in that area. This area flows out into Smith Creek and Greater Shinnecock Bay. So we have to be very cautious about protecting this area, particularly in light of the history of this area, wherein the watershed for the system was heavily impacted by development. So as new plans come forward, we ask landowners to appreciate the approximate land resources and work in my office to try and become good environmental steward of the area. And to do it then, to try and consider other approaches or designs in order to increase the setbacks. Hearing notwithstanding my belief that the footprint of the pool could be reduced and the pool could be shifted further landward, even in the event that variances may be needed, the applicant has no interest in moving forward with an alternative design that reduces the scale of this activity. And they are proposing a very, very large patio on top of a significantly sized pool. I think what the applicant needs to do is consider further expanding the buffer. That'll help better mitigate the impacts of the construction. And what are those effects? One of the great concerns with pool and patio is that these are areas where you have exterior human activity, and that activity stresses and affects wildlife in proximate areas. That if you look at much of the research that was done, the closer the activity is to wildlife, the less productive wildlife are with regard to breeding and living out their biology. Songbird, the success rates of songbird nesting is less, and so it's a little different with the house because the area is closed, but we won't have these exterior areas. Number one, we try to get them as far away from areas that are important for wetland dependent wildlife, so that the habitat is more functional. And the second part of that is to try and extend the buffer as much as possible. So again, hearing the applicant has no interest in either reducing the scale of construction or looking to shift the pool further away in a manner that would be more consistent with the setback parameters set forth by the board, would have to set the applicant consider further expansion of the buffer to lessen the impacts of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. As far as the wetlands themselves, as I mentioned, in reality, the easiest way to do that is close the road. But you can't do that. So this pool is not the main effect on the wildlife or the lands in that area. Again, Marty keeps back to this, but he's proposing it for me to put it in where I can't even without a variance. It's not in the right spot. It's a 20-foot setback. He got me at 10 feet. If that's shoved all the way here, then I'm gonna be here, and this is gonna change minimal at best. So we go from what, be 78 to 80? And it's not that I won't work with Marty, but I wanted to come here, propose what we have, get your feeling, and then, take the next step. But this was the big issue, and this does not work, and just doesn't work, I don't know how else to put it, honest with you.
Doesn't work because it forces you to go to ZBA for variance, or what is the reason why it doesn't work?
Well, it doesn't, because the way he wants it, he's immediately bringing you into the zoning board. It doesn't meet code, period.
But that doesn't exclude from
No,
issuing a
no, I
permit that way.
understand
The
that.
zoning board often looks at our reasoning when they issue
I-
the
that I
variance, so it's
understand.
not mutually exclusive.
But if we were to move this, and again, we're open to some suggestions. I'm just, I don't know what he wants me to do is build a 12 by 10 pool, but it's already, again, it's basically a lap pool. We're not building this huge pool that's 8 feet and, 20 by 40.
You seen Marty's drawing?
Yeah, Marty's drawing isn't, it's not 80, he shows it at 80.
It was a 10 by 20.
86.
Yes, and 86
So-
setback.
Yes, but if you, that's an even slope pool. That's a 10 by 20 pool. That's barely a pool. It's almost size of a hot tub. And again, I'm not saying I can't or won't change the size of the pool, but moving it over here and then cutting at least 30% of the pool out, that doesn't seem reasonable either.
What about possibility of moving the entire pool down, which direction is that? South?
South.
Well, that's my next point. So, as you can see here, we are already going to have to move it 5 feet. Because on this drawing and on the survey that you have, it's at 15 feet. So in order to avoid, we have a 20-foot setback. So that's already gonna have to be shifted towards the 5 feet. Can either be done by taking a couple of feet off and sliding it, or sliding the whole pool. There are options, go to a 10 by 20. I mean, the neighbor down the road, last year, you gave him a much larger pool, 3 doors down. And the both neighbors to the south, now I understand, let me just preface this with the fact that they both have pools, but they were built before conservation. One of them has no buffer and is 55 feet from the wetlands. The other one is about 20 feet from wetlands. So, as far as the neighborhood goes, and I don't know how much more backyard we're going to give them. 65% is really a lot. If you look at this, I mean, I don't think we're being unreasonable. But again, I'm not saying I'm not open to suggestions with Marty. I just wanted to show you what we were thinking and to get your thoughts.
Okay, so you're open to moving the pool south?
Well, we're gonna have to move south, and because we don't all have room, the thought is that we would probably take about 2 feet off the already angle, so that makes it a 12 by 28. And it's still gonna have to get shifted a couple of feet just to meet this setback.
I mean, when you say south, you mean to the left as we're looking at the
Yes, to the
drawing?
left. This
Okay.
is south here, west, and east. So this whole thing has to be shifted.
So you can move it 3 feet to the left and take
And
2
cut
feet
off
off,
2 feet of the
and then you can be in compliance at 20 feet.
With the department, yes.
Is room to move down?
So you're gonna say what? I have to get, which I don't have, which I thought he didn't put it on here, but all I really need, I'm not saying I'm not, but I need to get this dimension here from here to here, from the pool to the house. And then I
So
can,
Marty's drawing shows a 10 by 20 foot pool with an 86-foot setback. Essentially, that increased setback from your drawing of something a little bit less than 70 is, the increase in setback is because the pool is made shorter. So if you want the longer pool for a lap pool, then leave it in this orientation, but pull it closer downward.
okay, so when you say downward, you're
Down,
saying to the
yes.
house?
Yeah,
Well-
because really it's south, you need to move it southwest.
Well, this is south.
Yeah, well, south is,
This is a brainer here. This is going south, this end of the pool. There's no choice but to move it, or else we're gonna have to cut off
Yeah.
5 feet pool. No.
that gives you, that gets you in compliance with the zone code.
Yes, correct.
But to get you more compliance with our code, move it straight down, and then every foot move it down, another foot of separation from the wetland. The code calls for 100 feet, you can't do 100 feet.
No,
But
no,
you
I
can-
understand, but, and that I understand, but I'm thinking if we make it even 80 feet, you know, we spoke about the one on 15 Mill Pond, that's at 70, and that pool is bigger than this pool.
We can't make comparisons.
I understand,
on
and
the
they're all.
fly with other properties, we can't.
So I think what's best is for you to play around with it, get some measurements to look at, and see how you can come up with a pool that you want that does a better job of meeting the chapter 35 standards. I can't see exactly what that's gonna be right now,
No, I understand that.
but you might very well be able to achieve the 86 setback that Marty has achieved with his reoriented
Well,
pool.
Let me go to that though. So right now, this is at 78. To get to 86, you're talking 9 feet. That's gonna come all the way down to here, and then gonna have no patio.
And the
So-
pool is gonna be shaded.
Yeah, and the pool now the pool gets stuck behind this part of the house, back to square one, where this part of the house is blocked. Because this is a 2-story house also. You see, the more I pull this down, this part of the house, which is story, this is now gonna start blocking here. We're keeping all natural trees, which are large oaks, plus all the vegetation. I mean, it's just not practical, per se. To bring it where you're looking for is what I'm saying. I'm not saying we can't move it down, I'm just saying if we move 9 feet.
8.
Still in the shading.
It's still, and still right at the back door. What my thought is I'd like to get to the dimension here, from pool to here, and see how much room I have here, so I can play with this number here.
Okay.
Good.
Will that work for you?
Yes.
That's what you need to do, that's Marty.
Modi Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. I thought it would be helpful to explain to why I reoriented the pool the way I did. When the applicant previous come forward, and I was looking for the applicant to consider a similar thing to what you're asking, the applicant expressed a lot of concern about the pool potentially being shaded by the second floor section of the house. So one of the things that I did is I went to his property on the shortest day of the year, last December, and went at midday, about 11:30, when the sun was directly behind the highest peak of the house, to get the shading that was occurring in the yard. And I found, although the sun is at its lowest on the shortest day of the year, and their greatest potential when it's directly behind the peak of the house, I found that very little, if any, of footprint that I drew would be shaded. So that was one in direct response to prior concerns raised by the applicant regarding shading. The second comment I want to make is the applicant generally expressed that the property is in the midst of non-conforming or uncompatible residences. Yes, he did express that many of those residences and pools were prior to the effective date of Chapter 3, 2025. But I should mention, the house immediately north is fully compliant. It was built 125 feet back from wetlands. Its buffer is 100 feet. If you look at the aerial, Corinne, you could just bring up the aerial for a minute. If you look at the house immediately north, you see the woody vegetation comes very close up to this, because they had to comply with the minimum required 100-foot setback. Because this vacant land, when Up 325 was adopted, so they had come with a strictly conforming plan, which they did. They came back at one point in time to see if they could put a pool on this property, and they were denied the ability to put a pool on the property because they couldn't conform, that still required 125-foot setbacks. So there are residences in the area that have no ability to put a pool on their property. That being said, what I think is needed here is, as was alluded to, I think what the applicant needs to do is they need to go back to the drawing board and see what can be done to reduce the footprint of the patio pool, to see if there's an opportunity to lessen the coverage, to increase the structural setbacks, not necessarily maximize it, not necessarily consistent with what I drew, but any change would significantly reduce the setback would be beneficial. And part of that exercise would also be looking at whether or not it would be amenable to further increasing the buffer. The reason the buffer is drawn the way it is because I had suggested that the northern portion of the buffer tie in with the cognitive buffer on the adjacent property, which it just about does. But there may be an opportunity to further expand the buffer in the rest of the property. So I think the applicant received good guidance from this board. The applicant also expressed that we needed to take a look at setbacks from the house, what alternative options might work, and I'm happy to work with the applicant in considering alternative drawings. Thank you.
Okay, so, as I had mentioned before, that's, we're gonna play with this a little bit, see what we come up with, and, come back to you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak in this application? Anyone on Zoom?
Either the 14th or the 28th, June. 28th preferable.
How much time do you need?
Available one, wonderful, because I'll have this hopefully squared away.
Nothing earlier than June 14th, but 28th, they'll one person.
June 14th?
Motion going to June 14th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Advisory reports, 3 to 5 Roseville Road.
Good evening, again, Marty Chief Environmental Town. It's a pending subdivision for a property that was marked by a large covenant for many years, and the applicant is seeking to subdivide. There's take the covenant down and subdivide the convent down and subdivide the property into 2 lots. A lot of local neighborhood concern about its application. So the subdivision is in its final stages. There are several recommended comments. First is that the tract with 2 lots subdivision is being proposed fronts on Haygrove Cove, which is the largest tributary to Mecox Bay and a great ecological value to the town. Quality assessment and surface waters have been adversely affected by historic upland and development incidents, which have led to Mecox Bay being designated as a New York State pathogen impacted body. As such, every effort needs to be made to avoid further adverse environmental impact as a consequence of redevelopment. Second is the tract contains town regulated wetlands, section 292-39B. Referral is required. Thirdly, consistent with this board's prior advisory report dated July 28, 2021, the existing scenic conservation easement needs to be expanded to cover all portions of the parcel within 100 feet of the wetlands boundary. That's to protect and enhance wetland values. Fourth, there's also submitted such report. Portions of easement as well as recommended an expand buffer were previously cleared and disturbed. As such, the applicant needs to submit a revegetation and restoration plan for the existing and recommended expanded easement. If necessary, environment division can provide further reclamation guidance inclusive of native plants. 5, in order to ensure the wetlands adequately protected in the long term, a notice covenant needs to be filed advising future landowners of both parcels that the lots contain regulated wetlands and that town wetland permits may be required for any land disturbance or future construction. 6, any subject approval needs to be conditioned upon the establishment of one shared common elevated lot penetrable deck, maximum 4 feet wide to dock, by untreated posts, allowance for a maximum 4 feet wide pervious pedestrian path located within the bounds of the existing 30-foot legal access strip to Hague Ground Cove. And that summarizes recommending comments at this time.
Move to send these comments to the planning board.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Canal, Southern Storage.
This is a site plan application for a battery storage facility in Hampton Bays. There are several recommended comments. The first that an existing single-family mansion for cottage, it would be demolished in order to allow for construction of the battery and energy storage system, consisting of auxiliary power stations, power converter systems, lithium-ion battery unit atop concrete pads, switchgear, maintenance driveway, and leachate/drainage basins with utility lines to be directionally drilled near the Sunrise Highway, North Road, Lawboard Road interchange in order to connect to existing PSCG substations east. 4.29 acre land, which would be affected by the project, were formerly forests with pitch pine that have been heavily impacted by southern palmetto, leaving only a few healthy mature pine trees along North Road. 2, despite the abundance of forest standing dead trees, there is considerable indigenous coastal pines, vegetated ground cover, and some scattered oaks and sassafras, as well as Pennsylvania sedge, black huckleberry, bayberry, black cherry, and green fire, with very few invasives observed. 3, the project site is located in a high fire risk region of the town due to the abundant natural fuel loads present in this portion of Hampton Bays as a consequence of southern pine. Therefore, in view of the abutting highway, arterial roads, and prominent residential neighborhoods, as well as potential for soil and water contamination, emergency fire response and suppression plans need to be prepared. 4, the Winterberry Holly plant, which are proposed for installation alongside the eastern red cedar, should be substituted with native evergreen inkberry, as the latter plant is likely to be more tolerant. Rose soil. 5, as the planned action would intend disturbance greater than 1 acre. A SWIP application should need to be filed with the town engineer's office.
Move to send comments to the planning board.
Yes, just before you do, I wanted to say something. The site that they want to put this storage in, do you have any, I have some concerns. People are very worried about the fires in this area is because of the pines and the trees and where it's located. Is there any way to suggest that they might look for a better place? I don't know if there's a better place. many people have a lot of concerns, over these units. And the fires, and then they're very, very hard to get out, and they are. And that's an area that if we're in a drought, you worry about fires anyway.
I know that in light of those concerns, there's been some discussion about whether to institute a moratorium on additional applications. I don't know what the status of that is at the town board level.
Check on that, I'm not sure.
The second site they were looking at was a forested site in Hampton Bays on Tolcott.
Right.
It's also pine dominated forest with abundant tree debris and a lot of high fuel loads, and there are some concerns with that site. But this in particular was one of the areas that the town has hit the hardest by southern pine beetle. So you look at virtually all the surrounding areas going through the eastern Hampton Bays, going into Shinnecock, and there are abundant dead pines in that area. So, a suggestion can be made as an amendment to this advisory report if you want.
Do you know if that plan calls for removal of the trees? The dead trees?
Yes, the majority of the site would be bulldozed and developed. But that being said, the surrounding area is still marked by very abundant dead trees, standing and fallen trees. Plus, you've got northward on the west side, you've got the entrance and exit to Sunrise Highway on the south side, and you've got Sunrise Highway to the north, the railroad pretty close to the south. So it's right in the midst of heavily traveled arteries and highways, which raises additional concern in the light of fire.
Marty, is this a town project or a private project?
No, it's private.
Private?
PSCD.
One of the reasons this site chosen is because they need to connect into substations. And you have the large PSG substation on the south side of Sunrise Highway that they would directionally drill to in order to use this site. So that's one of the criteria. They need to find locations that are close proximity to substation. But I'm happy to make that suggestion.
In response to Thompson's motion?
So there's no call for solar here. Trying to figure out what they're doing here.
What a battery facility does is stores energy.
Yes.
So one of the main goals of these facilities is energy conservation.
They store energy
They store it that it's a siphon of the substation that they want to connect to.
during one part of the day to release it, another part of the day.
When anything that's not otherwise manned, it would be siphoned to battery storage. During our time, those batteries are kept at a certain level.
Okay.
But it's generating its own power by means of solar or.
Right.
So they're not losing
wind
any
enhancers
energy,
or
they're
whatever.
storing energy.
All right, is there a motion to?
I gave a motion.
You gave a motion, I'm just
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Old Stables at Spionk.
This is a pending subsequent final stages. These are so recommended comments. First, that the planned density and incentive subdivision would affect forested block in county watershed lands for CPTO code. Woods are vital for protecting water quality and replenishing groundwater. They also aid in cleaning the air through carbon sequestration and help to sustain low floral and faunal biodiversity. Two clearance standards should be adhered to. with allowable site disturbance limited to 60% on lots 1 and 4, and 53% on lots 2 and 3. Thirdly, the Conservation Board supports establishment of open space within Wesley part of the tract, with protected woods would link with town preserved lands to the north. 4, consistent with the Conservation Board's prior advisory reports 2015 and 2020, subdivision map has been revised to install trees with a pH of 24 inches or greater within portions of the tract developed. Trees outside of building envelopes to be preserved to the maximum extent practicable. 5, the planned open space should be demarcated with split rail fences rather than partial posts and wider fences to lessen interference with wild animal movement and risk of wildlife injury. And 6, the track is located within a mile and a half documented summer occurrences of federally endangered northern long-eared bat. As such, the applicant needs to contact DEC for guidance on tree removal and then to have protect measures that need to be adhered to. Any special requirements established by the DEC to be noted on the subdivision.
Move this comes to the planning board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? ZBA 61 Bayview Drive, LLC.
This is a lot line modification pending before the planning board. That's also for the CA. There are several recommended comments. The first comment indicates that parcels for which lot area, life, and property line setback variances are being sought, front on Little Conic Bank contain extensively interconnected freshwater and tidal wetlands, regulated by both the town and the state. Second, the Conservation Board supports the transfer of approximately 7,656 square feet of land from Lot 1, known as 1 Bayview Drive, to Lot 2, which is 65 Bayview Drive. As the lot line modification would allow for elevation and retreat of bayfront residents, thereby better coastal resiliency and compatibility with FEMA standards. However, the Conservation Board has concerns with regard to proposed development of Lot 2. In the interest of lessening potential adverse environmental impacts and the risk of future storm and flood damage, project plans need to be revised to reduce the footprint and coverage of the proposed residents and to eliminate the planned swimming pool, both would be proposed less than 10 feet from wetlands, where a minimum structural setback 100 feet is required by code. 4, scaling back the residential development plans will allow for establishment of a critically needed connected wetland reservation area, naturally vegetated wetland non-disturbance fertilization buffer. And lastly, the use of shallow distribution trenches in lieu of leaching galleys also needs to be explored in order to minimize the deposition of fill, which can alter drainage patterns and unnaturally displace floodwaters onto other proximate residentially developed properties.
Excuse me, they had an application before us?
Now, we had a lot modification before the planning board, and because part of the lot line modification is a proposal to construct a new home, we recommended that the planning board defer wetland permitting to this board for the purposes of residential development. They decided not to do that. So the residential development plans are being reviewed by the planning board as a site plan application.
So it will not come before us?
No.
Then, I'm sorry, Marty, I'm a little confused. You're talking about a swimming pool being proposed less than 10 feet in wetlands? And that's gonna be approved?
Well, I don't know if it's gonna be approved, just that the plan board, decided that because the, planned residential development is, closely associated with outline modification, that they should be, using their powers to require submit a site plan application in order to consider the, residential development.
But these comments are just to the zoning board.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say that, thank you. This is not actually the planning board application we're looking at tonight. This is the zoning board application as indicated in this comment. The residential redevelopment plans require lot area, lot width, and property line setback variances. So before the planning board can move forward with finalizing lot line modifications and the site plan, the landowner was directed to go to the zoning board to see if they could get leave that necessary.
Is it possible to put a comment in here that we strongly suggest that they come before us with a, for a wetland application?
Well, I can certainly do that, but we did
Oh, you did that
recommendation previously in response to the planning application, and I also was very involved in pre-application meetings with their consultants, their attorney, and planning staff, wherein they made that recommendation as well. It was basically ignored. So. But this would not be the appropriate time to make that recommendation, because at this time, you're responding to an advisory referral from the zoning board rather than the planning board. Planning board application will come back to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move to send these to the ZBA.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And Board of Trustees, the freeholders and commonality of the town of Southampton. Did Silverstein. I don't have that one in my packet.
So do I.
It was in it.
Okay.
It's at the end?
No, we put it on last minute, so it might not.
So why don't we,
Do you have it on your computer?
I could put it in.
Not on the screen.
Yeah.
so the Board of Trustees had with a pending application for a property on Waters Road in North City, where the owner had installed a bulkhead along a naturally vegetated shoreline of Fish Road without permits from either trustees or this board. This initially came to our attention when a prior application was made to this board to get approval to construct residential additions. I had inspected the property at that time, so it was an authorized bulkhead, reported it to trustees.
That's good.
In response to citations, the landowner had made an application to the trustees to legalize the bulkhead, and the application was denied, and this board had supported denial. The landowner was told the bulkhead needed to be wholly removed in the shoreline reclaimed. They never did it. And so I don't know if the ownership has changed since then, but current owner is going back to the board to get the board to reconsider that denial, if they can keep that bulkhead. I went to the property yesterday, and nothing has changed about this property that would warrant legalizing that bulkhead. This property is a very shaded location, so there's no wave action, there's no potential wind generated erosion. All the surrounding properties are naturally vegetated the shoreline. So the advisory report that Karina put on the screen here recommends that the application should be denied again.
Marty,
That the shoreline fully restored. Landowner has also been cited for illegal construction activities associated with the residences. Well, they got a stop work order for that. House is just sitting. They haven't started working again.
Marty, if they determine something is illegal, is there any kind of documentation goes with that? I mean, would that get past the title search, Tom?
I don't know, I'm not a person.
Well, the title search would
Realtors know.
result in finding of the existing citations. I'll assume that. So, this property's been in violation for years. So, as indicated, they were directed to remove the bulkhead and claim the shoreline. And I think the trustees recommended that they put me on the reclamation plan. It was never done. So now they're going back again and asking them to reconsider. So the advisory report is written, say that the circumstances haven't changed, and there's no need for shore arming in this protected coastal area, and it goes on to support the denial of the option and removal of the pit again.
Visited the property, is the last house, is there a house further beyond towards the water, or by itself?
This edge, you have a string of houses along the water. Robbins Lane is just to the south of the property. One residence is over.
Okay, it's not, all right, thank God. It's not that house, no, thank God.
Is there a motion to send these comments to
So
the
moved.
trustees?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The administrative wetland permits in your packets, resolution of conditional approval, A 002019 Doreen Grego. Discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolved that a conditional wetland approval is granted to Doreen Grego for the proposed terms conditional fourth to rent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 02300346 Oakhurst Road LLC. Discussion?
Move to issue.
Second.
Resolved that a wetland approval is granted to 46 Oakhurst Road LLC for the proposed project terms and conditions set forth. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 022028 Denise Sokolich.
Motion to,
Go ahead.
motion to postpone to May 10th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 022008 Linda Perillo. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Resolved that a conditional wetland approval is granted to Linda Perillo for the project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 023010 Margot Carr and Dana Robinson. Discussion?
Move to issue.
Resolved that a conditional wetland approval granted to Margot Carr and Dana Robinson for the proposed project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A 023018 Linda Corso and Clifford Dean Corso. Any discussion?
Move to issue.
Resolved that a conditional wetland approval granted to Linda Corso and Clifford Dean Corso for the proposed project on the terms and conditions set forth therein. All in favor?
Aye.
Under review explanation, A 021006 Nicholas Christopher and Penelope Christopher.
Motion to postpone May 10th, 2023.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, A 020112 Giretti Pupa.
Motion to postpone 10th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, A 0205 Francis Torres and Yvonne Torres.
This application will make an existing residential development on Hot Lane in Elmwood, Sussex. Property's frontage on state antenna regulated freshwater wetlands. There are activities that need to be utilized. We're also looking to construct residential additions. There is a preliminary report on file, dated April 24, 2023. When I visited the property, I found that property was not in compliance with an existing covenant approved due to clearing, landscaping, and fencing, and that it was also not in compliance with for protection overlay district clearance standards. So my office has just been working with the applicants to come forward with a plan to restore and expand upon the existing covenanted butters, and to bring this property into compliance with the natural natural vegetation protection standards. We're close to a final plan for this property. Part of that plan would be to relocate the existing unauthorized hot tub on the property to get it further away from the water, as well as to offer installation of an IA OWTS. There is sufficient information determined. As such, they're recommending that the hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Second. Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby opens the public hearing pursuant to chapter 25, section 325-880 of the Town Code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? AZ02082, Erlinda Bildner.
Motion to postpone until 10th?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A02202, Scott Collinson.
This application relates to an existing residential developed property in the central Pinelands, adjacent to a shrub stump and regulate freshwater wetlands. The applicant needs to legalize various steps. They're looking to construct secondary addition to the existing dwelling, porch and rooftop deck. They want to install a swimming pool deck area. Would also be upgrading the sanitary system. We have been working closely with the landowner to try and produce a conforming plan for the property. The current proposed recommendation is establishing a covenant to naturally vegetated buffer, taking in portions of the property within 75 feet of the adjacent wetland. Establishment of that buffer will entail removal of hardscape improvements such as a arbor, ornamental pond, gravel patio area, frame bed, and fences. The pool is going to be structurally elevated. Provides sufficient vertical separation from the shell groundwater in this area. There is, we are also closer with the applicant on a restoration plan for buffer using indigenous pine barrens vegetation. There is sufficient information in order to make that determination. As such, I'm recommending that the public hearing requirement be waived.
Motion to waive public hearing?
Resolved that the Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public hearing requirement pursuant to chapter 325, section 325-80 of the Town Code. Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Covenant interpretation amendment A0220991 Cobb Isle LLC.
This application was made to the board, work with my office in order to develop a plan for conservation and management measures within existing covenanted buffer that was required by this board in order to better practically the ecological integrity of the area in order to counter some of the invasive plants that are colonizing the site. In response to this board requirements of a prior permit, the applicant had done very extensive native planting. Some of that vegetation is being choked out by varieties of invasive weeds. Did have an opportunity to meet with the landowner and the caretaker, and there's been quite a lot of communication back and forth between me, with the owner and caretaker and with their attorney, as well as in science, resulting in a final conservation management plan. In order to offer the conservation management, which is the language of the existing covenant, would need to be amended. So the applicant will come forward with a survey detailing the permissible conservation and management measures, and then a covenant will be drafted for review by town office. One of the things that the covenant will also do is when the board had previously required a covenant, the restricted area is brought right up to the residence, the walls of the residence, and the landowner needs to have safe access around the exterior residence. So the plan does include a 5-foot grass pathway on the house.
Is there a motion? This is a change of covenant, so we need majority plus one, which is 5 out of 6 of our votes for tonight. And just scroll down the last bit for the resolution.
And hereby waives.
Well, are we, no, we're,
So right now, we're looking at, right now, the resolution before you is simply the hearing, because the conservation measures is more authorized than the existing plan is being amended through the wetland permit application process at this stage.
Okay, it's gonna come
There's a
back to us
recommendation
later.
of the hearing, because we do have sufficient information to go forward with this application. But when it comes forward, when it comes for review for conditional approval, we will need a majority plus one vote of approval in order to issue a permit allowing for these covenant changes.
Motion to waive the public hearing?
Second?
resolve that Town Conservation Board hereby waives the public requirement per chapter 325, section 32025, JD of the town code. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all.
Got a nice night.